In meditation, we don't pay attention to the thoughts passing through our minds, of course, nor do we when we are off the cushion or chair and not concentrating on doing something. Times when we're daydreaming or wandering in our minds. Before getting a ways into practice, moreover, we also may not recognize the extent to which the thoughts of attraction, aversion, or indifference can cause us to suffer. That said, though the second of the Bodhisattva vows is, delusions are inexhaustible, I vow to end them, this doesn't mean that we should police our minds to try to prevent such thoughts from entering them, or even try to stop ourselves from being overly influenced by thoughts that are already there. Once aware of our delusions, all we need to do is to fully accept them one by one without holding on to them. Similar help with dealing with our self-concerned thoughts can come from paying attention to the precepts. It might initially seem easy to keep the first of the precepts, the 10 prohibited precepts, do not kill. It's easy for us maybe because never having considered it to have to do with anything that we would do. But this precept could be broken merely by thinking something mean. A simple example of such negativity, one that I've given before, is us as drivers to mistakenly judge that what other drivers are doing is injurious to us. Not interested in what could be motivating them, we may still feel justified in getting angry, despite the unlikelihood that they intend to hurt us. In driving in the way they want to, of course, the other drivers may be acting out of selfishness and putting themselves first, but hardly any of us are actually put in danger by them. Finally, not knowing who the other drivers are, it seems a little silly for us to get angry when the only one affected by this is the one who has gotten angry, which is me or you. Here's Harvey, here's your tail for you right here, there you go. Okay. A further possible response is to blame other drivers for making us angry. We can make ourselves even more upset by acting as if we were forced to respond in that way, as in, it's your fault that I feel this way. I don't imagine that anybody really likes to think that they have done something wrong. Rather, we may think of ourselves as realistic, yet refuse to believe evidence that contradicts this. Being thus unaware of the facts, but thinking that we are right anyway, it makes it hard to know whether what we believe is true, actually is. However, it is enough for us to recognize that anger has likely arisen because of self-concerned reaction to the thought of being put in harm's way. Being in this way aware of the connection between the first precept and getting angry, we can become more conscious of what's going on when we get upset about things. The meaning of this is that we shouldn't only take precepts literally, but should also understand that they each relate to everything in life. Take the one against intoxicants, not intoxication, but intoxicants here. It refers not only to making, selling, or using alcohol or drugs, but to anything we do that takes us away from the present moment. Having lots of sugar even can do this. Intoxicants shouldn't be seen as functioning to enhance reality, but only as merely a way to escape it. Being high may appear to give us a break from ordinary life, but what it really does is provide ways for us to try to flee reality. Things being used for this have the opposite effect of zazen. It sits us down right where we are, here and now being the place and time to experience what is real. When we accept things as they are, problems almost magically become manageable. Both those we know belong to us and those coming to us from the unique world that we are in the middle of. Suzuki Roshi said, as you know, perhaps that he was sorry to say, but that we would always have problems every day. That is, looked at closely, such as the problem of being angry at other drivers, each of our problems is particularly ours, if not actually caused by us. The point is not, however, to lay blame on ourselves. Knowledge of the reasons for having a problem in itself is a powerful antidote for that makes self-incrimination superfluous. On noticing a mistake of our own, we can just say, "Oh," to ourselves, and then let go of it. Okay? Harvey and I say thank you. And right, Harvey? Where's your tail again? I can't put it up, can I? No. All right, so I have to move Jane. I can't move myself. I have to move Harvey then. Harvey?
Here, Harvey.
Get with Jane for a second. Okay, here I am. Harvey, come back. Oh, Harvey, too. Just use it for a while. I'll get myself more comfortable with it. What am I doing? Oh, that's not sitting on that. Sitting on my stick. That didn't work. All right, here we go. Mike?
A thought popped into my head during your talk about intoxicants. And I think we discussed this once before a long time ago. Intoxicants can also be attachments. And even attachment to Zen Buddhism can be an intoxicant if we're obsessed by Zen Buddhism in a sense that we latch onto it and I'm going to do it this way, I'm going to do all this. That almost becomes an intoxicant. Is that relevant to what you were talking about?
It certainly is. That's a very good example. You know, it's we have to be very careful not to get intoxicated with being with some teacher, or reading the Dharma, or thinking of ourselves as sitting, as making that we are important people because we're sitting. All kind of thoughts like that could come to our heads. But anyway, yes, that's making the Dharma into an intoxicant. So that's one of the things in our everyday life, everyday lives, that we should be aware of. You know, not to get high on sitting. Chris?
So you said a couple things, and I wanted to ask about how they relate to each other.
Okay.
One was that sort of, thoughts or fantasies or daydreams can be sort of like intoxicants because they're sort of taking us out of things. But you also said that zazen is the opposite of intoxicants. But you also said that delusions are inexhaustible does not mean you're trying to like keep out your thoughts. So if I'm sitting on the cushion and doing zazen, and I'm trying my best to just sort of stay present, but I'm also not fighting thoughts or daydreams, and then I find myself sort of completely out of the moment, and then I bring myself back.
Yeah.
Is it just the bringing myself back that's zazen, or was I also doing zazen when I was kind of off in a fantasy or daydream?
Well, that's a good. I guess that's a good question. My answer would be, well, there were actually several things that you said, but I've lost track of them already. But yes, the whole thing is Zazen. That's is my feeling. And I don't think it makes much of a difference actually. But anyway, yeah. I mean, you're sitting there, and you're sitting there. Sitting there is Zazen, and you're at the same time you're concentrating. Concentrating is Zazen, and so of course our mind wants to go its own way, or that's what it does, and so we as it were come back home. So we leave and we come back home. It's all part of Zazen, yeah. Not just good Zazen, because we're judging our Zazen at that point. If we did that, we'd be miserable because look at the time. Most of the time we spend not having good Zazen, right? So, yes, Chris, you get some more to.
All right. And I guess as a slight bonus question, if I can,
Sure.
in in the translation that they chanted to San Francisco Zen Center of Fukan Zazengi, it says something like, "Think the thought of non-thinking." What is non-thinking? It's completely the opposite of thinking. I'm wondering if you could say something about like what is non-thinking and how to do that when we're doing zazen.
Well, you're doing Zazen, and maybe you're starting off by counting your breaths. Maybe you aren't, but anyway, you're watching your breath. The breath is very important, whether you're counted or not. But when when your mind is very uppity, then counting is useful. But as you go along, you find that you stop counting sometimes. Not always, but that happens, and that's fine actually. If you're the point is not counting. Obviously, counting is just another tool. But after that, sometimes you're no longer aware of your breath, but you are. You're not really aware of being there really. You're just doing. You're doing. And what you're doing, you're just doing. Dogen would say, "Doing does doing," or sitting, or something like this. Not exactly quote. Or sitting sits sitting, and that's the state that you're asked about. When sitting sits sitting. When you are just when when there actually I say when you're just there, but there's no there even. You can't put it. It's not like it's special, but you can't put it in words either, because words take you away from what the experience of it is. But anyway, yeah, that's what it's like, and there are more things as well, but definitely that, yeah. Anything else, Chris? We got a gasho there. Anyone else have a comment? Anybody else have a good have an example of some way that they use the precepts that would not really be useful? Oh yes, Mike. Mike. Oh, if your speaker's off, I mean your mic's off.
I can't wait to be back there. It's okay for your mind to wander. It's like a dog. You just pull on the leash and bring it back, and it calms down for a while, and then it'll go wander off and sniff something else, and you bring it back. That is part of zazen. You can't block those thoughts. You just don't get attached to them. You just let them flow through. And yes, you're gonna find yourself 5 minutes later even thinking about a daydream or something like this, but you still catch yourself. You bring yourself back, recenter yourself on yourself, and then it continues on. So zazen is not a perfect thing. It's a process. It's not an achievement, I guess. Is that kind of correct to say it that way?
Yes, yes. And if I can make a pun, I was going to say the difference, Mike, between your zazen and my zazen is it doesn't take me 5 minutes to notice it. Only takes me 3.
There's hope for me yet, then, huh?
Thanks.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Need a little more here, please. Well, okay. Well then, I'll give you a few more seconds here in case the magic happens. And oh, well done, Chris. Thank you. I like that. That's a question. Here's my answer.